And now we are going to do the Sutra number 5 of the Shiva Sutras in the second chapter, Sutra number 5. And this is Sutra number 4, as we mentioned, if we just read it once more, Garve Chitta Vikaso Visishta Vidya Swapnaha. So when you're still caught up in that Bheda Vritti, dualities, various ways in which you sort of are dealing with dualities, and then you have a few parimita siddhis, few limited, you excel in a certain ways. These 4 siddhis that we mentioned yesterday, about what? That you have nada, you might listen to some beautiful music, the humming omkara within, or yeah, I think I'm muted. Oh, no, I'm not muted. Can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you.
Yeah, Navaganji, maybe you have to,
Yes. Yes, we
yeah,
can.
yeah, with your speaker or something. Yeah, there's some issue there. So when you these 4, Rupa and Rasha, and sometimes you may have a Dibya Anhuti, that your mind is firmly established. You have some Teja, and so you get these benefits: Teja, Nada, Rupa, and a Rasa. You would be able to see things in darkness, or maybe you can figure out what is there in another room. You have a lot of yogic pratyaksha. These are all there in the Nyaya Sastras and also in the Patanjali Yoga Sutras. A lot of siddhis are there. But here also they were treated as upasargaha. These are inferior ones. They do not take you to the ultimate destination. So he's saying chitta vikaso avishishta vidya swapnaha. They are dreamlike. They are not real. Why they are not real? Because they do not give you real liberation. And again, if you remember correctly, the 4th sutra follows the 3rd sutra, in which he's saying that vidya sarira satta mantra rahisyam, that what is the secret of the mantra sadhana is to reunite it with the Shiva Swarupa that all of us are. Having said that, now in the 5th sutra, he's taking us back to the original discussion, Chitta Mantraha. So the meditation Shaktopaya, what does he say there? Vidya Samuthane Swabhavike Khechari Shivavastha. Vidya Samuthane Swabhavike Khechari Shivavastha. Vidya. So, as we had discussed yesterday, all these siddhis are a product of the Asuddha Vidya. Asuddha, why? Because there are impurities, imperfections. Like, for example, you have the ability to know Sarvajnatva, and you have Alpagyatva, Kinchitgyatva in these lower level. Even if you are expert in a particular way, that doesn't give you the totality, the understanding of the totality. So it's kind of fractured. Our life worlds are fractured, and our consciousness in a way is fractured. Why is it fractured? Because it's tied up with different dheya vastus, different objects of meditation, A, B, C, D. So once we are in a world in which we see everything in the context of separateness, A is different from B, B is different from C, and the moment we are thinking about anything, we are focused and limited to that particular aspect. If you remember, there was this famous author long back. He was very popular when we were students, Alvin Toffler. He wrote that famous book called Future Shock, in which so in Future Shock he mentions, I remember, that now we have come to a stage in which we do not know who is the person we are talking to, because we are interestingly interacting with one module of that person, and we are also not interacting. One module of us is interacting with that person. And the best example of that will not be found in Indian cultural conditions, but in Western cultural conditions, in the workplace. Nobody knows who is who. So if a person is having depression or breaks down, everybody is flabbergasted because they don't know no one knows anyone's personal life. Nobody is supposed to ask. No, I mean, everybody has his sphere well defined. So we never share. Even if you have a few feelings, you're not supposed to share it. You hide your emotions, your judgments. You are bringing in the best out of you in that domain in which you are giving your services as an expert, and they are paying you for that. And if you are a little close to somebody, of course, you may open up, but still always you guard against sharing your deepest personal belief systems. It may not fit into the system, the corporate system. Then they may have a certain prejudice against you. They might typecast you that he is like this or she is like this. So you are just limited to yourself. Why am I mentioning this? Our consciousness, when we are dealing with our environment, similarly, is kind of modular in nature. It's always focused on X, Y, Z. It never contemplates on the deeper reality, the unified consciousness. It doesn't see things in relatedness, in their relatedness as they're part of a grand field, the foundation, what we call Brahman and stuff like that. And therefore, all these vidyas, all this knowledge, all that we experience are fractured, fragmented. They will not give us liberation. Therefore, they are avisishta. They are not nothing special. We discussed that yesterday, and that is compared with a dream. Now, he's saying no. But however, if you have the clarity of thought and you're steadfast in your sadhana, and if you graduate to the next stage, if you want to graduate to the next stage, then obviously you would have to say no to these dividends coming out of your investments in lower level sadhanas. So, sometimes what happens is that you have invested in a lot of shares and stocks and you are getting reasonably good dividend. But then if you are taking a major decision, you want to make another investment or set up your own company, you withdraw your investments, you shell off your stake, right? You bring in all your energy for the next big venture you are going to undertake. Similarly, in this spiritual field, you are getting a few dividends, spiritual dividends, out of the sadhana that you have done so far. And these dividends are in the form of certain siddhis, good siddhis. Vis-a-vis, what dividends you are getting is much greater than compared to another middle class guy who has no investments. You are much better off. Then why are you selling off those stocks? Because you have something even bigger in your mind. It's a risk, but you want to make a new investment. You want to start your own project or your own company. Therefore, you need capital. So you withdraw all your capital. Similarly, the sadhaka is saying, Vidya samuthane swabhavike khechari shivavastha. There are 4 words in it. First, we have to understand what does it mean to say Vidya Samuthane, where there is emergence of Suddha Vidya. Vidya here could be Suddha Vidya. And then how does that arise? Not through a lot of hard work. You remember even earlier we have already discussed that in the Sambhavapaya, also here. This sadhana is akritima. It is not hardship through which you reach here. It is with the grace, with anugraha of the Paramashiva, and by opening ourselves to that supreme consciousness, things become easier, and these things happen very easily. You remember the example I had given. Like an eagle, once it sees a piece of meat or a fowl or a fish or whatever in the river, it swings and dives in air without any effort and captures it. Similarly, the mind which is pure, which is torn spiritual, which is torn inwardly, focuses its attention on that Paramashiva Tattva without any effort. Durecha antikecha, Bhagavan says in Bhagavad Gita, for the one who is open to me, I am very near him. He can get me very quickly. And the one who doesn't understand this reality, my presence, who am I, and whose antakarana is not very Shuddha, for him, no, I'm very difficult. He can never come near me. It's very difficult. He has to struggle a lot. Similarly, he's saying Swabhavika, that second word, Swabhavike. And then what happens? Swabhavika Vidya Samuthane. So as a result of God's grace, Maheshwara Ichha, that word will come in the commentary. As a result of divine grace, of course, you have to have the adhikara. It's like these days everybody has just one child in India. But if you have 3-4 children and there's a boy who never demands anything, always busy with his studies, of course, the mother tends to give more attention to the mischievous boy or girl. But still, when she has to give an award or a gift, where does she give it to? The boy who never troubles her is always busy with his studies, with his work, and is very supportive, very respectful. Automatically, she gives that reward to him. Others might crib. She says, "No, it's not for you." She never went near her. All children think that she doesn't love him. She loves him most, even though she doesn't go near him because she doesn't want to disturb him. When it comes to give a reward, she rewards him. And she gives a reward which he deserves. She doesn't give him chocolates or dolls. She gifts him a book which he might love reading. Similarly, Bhagavan gives us that gift of natural concentration. He gives us that gift of natural orientation towards him when we have that basic adhikara. So, Suddha Vidya Samarthane Swabhavika. When it happens naturally, then what happens? Khechari Shivavastha. And the Khechari that we have understood yesterday, there was a certain interpretation. And whatever we discussed yesterday would be kind of nullified today. There's one Khechari which you study in the Yogi Kundalini science, right? So you'd be turning your tongue in and you would go and sit in an erect posture. And then obviously without the need for any sweetness in your mouth, you're being able to experience sweetness of taste. So you are getting the phala, the outcome of that indriya vyapara, even though the object of your indriya vyapara or the jnana indriya, the sense perception happens without an object. On its own, you get the benefit of that experience. That is what we discussed yesterday. Today, he would say something else. The benefit remains the same. You have that amritatva anubhava. However, the way he's saying this is completely twisted from the way a yogi will tell you, a tantric sadhak will tell you. So there are two ways in which this is mentioned. Malini Vijayotara Tantra is also one of the most important Kashmiri Saivism, one of these tantric texts. There is a certain narration of how to do this particular Khechari mudra. Different mudras are discussed there. And Kshemaraja quotes from there to say, no, here in the sutra, the Khechari word which is mentioned is not referring to that psychophysical effort-led experience of bliss. That's a psychological thing which is experienced because of psychophysical exercise or modulation of your body-mind system. You are engineering something within and you have a certain experience which is blissful. That is one thing. That's not going to give you liberation. That's going to give you a feel. It's a good feel. It's like a person takes a piece of sweet and feels good. That's going to last only so far as that is in the mouth, and then it goes off. The experience changes. Similarly, the Khechari mudra, you can be there in your meditation when you sit in that meditative pose, but when you wake up, slowly it vanishes. But the Khechari mudra, which is mentioned here, is a swabhavika avastha because this is not a product of psychophysical exercise. This is a product, or this is associated with enlightenment where you are established in that Parama Shiva Tattva. The dualities have vanished. The causes of fragmentation, which is essentially ignorance, we do not know our Swarupa. When that ignorance is removed, the craving for different things in the world appears superfluous. The mind is naturally tuned and is naturally established in the true inner self of yours, which is no different from the Parama Shiva Tattva. And when you are established there, he's saying that is the Khechari Mudra and that is Shivavastha. It's no different from the Parama. So you see, as I was telling you, that we start with this little self, we start with this body-mind complex and our individual consciousness as a tool for our sadhana. And then when that Suddha Vidya Udaya happens, then we are established in that supreme state of consciousness where the individuality part is ruptured, forsaken, removed, flushed out. What remains in the end is pure consciousness, which is no different from the Parama Shiva Tattva. And that is Shiva Avastha. At that Avastha, you remember earlier, Lord Shiva says, do you know that devotee of mine, whatever he wants happens. Because he has no individual will anymore. His will is my will and my will is his will, because he has completely taken shelter in me. Whatever I want to do happens through him. But people say he wills and it happens. But he has become my instrument. He has nothing of his own, and he's fully enlightened, because his individual consciousness is a consciousness which is the universal consciousness. From the fragmented, individual, limited, finite consciousness, which is limited and restricted in nature, through this meditation, that Khechari Mudra, the Khechari, also we will do the explanation of it in the commentary. So let's move into the commentaries. This is broadly the purpose of this, that when you are able to overcome the temptation to stick to the benefits of your yoga sadhana, which are in the form of limited success stories, in the form of a few siddhis, you want to march forward, you want to dump these things. If you have done trekking, you will know that. So last year I walked from here to Badrinath and Kedarnath. So we carried a lot of like sleeping bag and this and that, and then you are walking 20 kilometers, 30 kilometers a day, and it felt very, very heavy. So at Prague, I packed everything. I removed a lot of things. Okay, I'll suffer if there's a winter, but I can't carry all this. So I parceled them back to where I stay. I moved on. And then Guptagasi, again, I took out that iPad and this and that. These things are not required. I parcel them home. And finally, you are very light. You're just carrying about a bag. And then I realized why these sadhus or trekkers, of course, professional trekkers are able to carry about 15 kilos, but generally, having a burden of about 10-15 kilos on your bag and walking long distances can be very challenging in the mountainous range. It's very good that you work light. In the spiritual sadhana, similarly, if you want to ascend to the more refined levels of experience and realization, the burden of having siddhis can be very limiting in its influence, and therefore it's much better that you actually get rid of them. You travel light. Your greatest source of all your energies is actually that Paramashiva Tattva. And the tool is complete surrender and complete focus. And then things happen naturally, as we have already discussed also in Sambhavapaya, that a lot of these things happen magically on their own. And then he experiences a state in which every moment is new. It's full of excitement. Because nothing in the real world so far he has experienced can match up to the feeling of wonder that he experiences when he's established in that Paramashiva Tattva that we saw. So let's look at the commentary. So first, let's look at the simple commentary at the end, which kind of sums up a lot of commentaries from Kshemaraja and Varadaraja. Yada praptam api parimita siddham upeksha. So you have some limited successes that you have and you ignore them. You do upeksha. You renounce them. Param sthitim yogi anusandhate. And you're looking for that supreme state, param sthitim. Then what happens? Tatah sa sivavastam samadhigacchati iti varnayati. Then he goes up and he's established in the Paramashivavastha, that Advaya Pratha. There is no duality anymore. And Shivoham, Vishwoham, I am the Vishwa, I am the Shiva, I am Vishwatirna, I am Vishwamaya. That is the feeling that he has. Then he's explaining the sutra. Vidya samuthane swabhavike khechari sivastha. That is the sutra. And what is the Vrittikara saying? Paradvaya pratharupa suddha vidya udaye. What is that suddha vidya? Paradvaya. You can have certain intermittent or intermediate experiences of non-duality. One of them we experience in deep sleep every night. When we are in deep sleep, there's no duality, there's non-duality, but that's not liberation. Because there is no anyatha grahana, there is no false understanding of reality, but there is complete agrahana. That is an ajnana state. Even though it's an anandamaya state, there is no jnana, there is no awareness. Therefore, that's not fulfilling. Paradvaya pratharupa, that advaya pratharupa suddha vidya udaye khe bodha gagane. Khe here is akasha. But Akasa here is representative, is symbolically representing the infinite, the infinitude of that awareness, Suddha Chaitanya, which is Gaganopama. It is comparable with this Akasha, Gaganopamam. Again and again, a lot of gurus refer to their guru, to Bhagavan, to Lord Shiva as Gaganopamam. Why? It's Parivyapta, all pervading. So here he's saying Ke Chari. So Ke Charati iti. So Bodha Gagane Charati iti. Ke, Kha means Akasa. The one which moves in Akasa is Khechari. The yogi will say that by doing this psychophysical manipulation of your body, doing sadhana, it's possible for you to experience as if you're flying in the sky. You feel extremely light. Of course, that's easier to experience if you do a bit of sadhana. Even if you do some yogasanas and all, you feel very supple. Your body feels not heavy but light. That's easy to experience. But then you are flying in the sky. That happens only in very deep meditation. And he's saying Bodha Gagane, but that Gagana is not a psychological thing. Here it is, that is a state of realization. Bodha Gagane, Bodha is Jnana, Jnana Gagane, Charati iti Khechari. Mudra Avivyajyate, Mudra. And there's a beautiful understanding of Mudra here also. We'll also look at what Mudra means. Mudra is not gestures to your hands and fingers like Dhenu Mudra, Yoni Mudra. There are different kind of mudras which we use during pujas. But mudra is what? What is that state that you are referring to? We'll look at them. So this commentary, this is the Vritti, and he is kind of expanding on it. He's saying, Vidya Samuthane Swabhavike Khechari Shivasta. Vidya Samusthane, what does it mean? Vidya Yaha Purvatra Darshita Tattva Pravanayaha. So this Vidya Yaha, of that Vidya, Purvatra Darshita, we have already explained that earlier in the earlier sutras. Tattva Pravanayaha, that Vidya which is all the time focused on Tattva, that Shiva Tattva, that supreme reality, the truth, the totality. Samuthane Sati, when that happens. Other commentators have also explained it in different ways, that the central focus of the sutra, according to, for example, Lakshman Juji, he's saying that, look, we are all the time talking about minor little things around us. These minor little things are part of a grand, greater reality. When we are able to orient our understanding in a fashion that in these tiny little things we see the whole. Drishyam, Shariram, Shariram, Drishyam. Earlier we had discussed that. So, Aham Idam, everything is me and I am everything. When we see that grand reality in everything, Sarvam Vasudevam iti Bhagavad Gita says, that is the trick here. That is what he's saying. Suddha Vidya Ude Samathane Swabhavike Khechari Shivavastha he mentions. So then what he's saying is Samuthane Sati Parameshwara Sankalapa Yukte. Then you are doing that complete surrender and you have that Ishwarapana Buddhi is very powerfully there, stable, no doubt, no confusion, nothing. Parameshwara Sankalpa Yukte, and you have that Anugraha Bhagwan. Bhagwan is kind because of your sadhana and your adhikara, your yogyata. Paramita Siddha Tiraskara Bhavini. You have a few siddhis, but you want to do tiraskar of them. You want to flush them out. You want to remove them. You are not enamored by them anymore. Bhavini Swabhavataha Samujrumbhani Swabhavataha. Again, that same thing. Akritamas. When it happens naturally, Swabhavika, these are the words. Swabhavataha, by nature, Sati. Siva Avastarupini Khechari Mudra Avivyajyate. That Shiva Rupa Khechari Mudra happens. Okay, that is the literal meaning of it. And what is that Khechari Mudra? He's commenting, and others have also commented beautifully. Khe Gachati iti Khechari. Khe. What is Khe? Jnana Gagane Chariti iti. The Kshemaraja says, Bodha Gagane, Vrittikara says, Bodha Gagana. Bodha is awareness, Jnana. Jnana Gagane Charti, Gachati, iti Khechari Mudra. And what is the meaning of Mudra? There are three interpretations. And this one given here, Mudam Rati, iti Mudra. Mudam Rati. Mudam, what is Mudam? Mudam is Harsham. Okay? That which gives you Harsha. And what is that harsha? You know, that harsham mudra, this beautifully is mentioning that there are mudam rati, he's giving that ananda, whatever. The other way to look at this is that uh, mudam rati, dadati, mudam, it gives you that harsha. That is called mudra. It gives you joy. Mum dravayati, mum, what does it mean? Mum is dukkham, bondage. Okay. Bandham dravayati, it melts down, it dissolves the bondage of ignorance. Therefore, that's called mudra. This is another way to look at it. Mudravayati iti. Mudravayati means what? It sort of converts, seals off this whole universe into the Turyavastha, the fourth state. So you have that Jagrat, Swapna, Susupti, in that you have Turyavastha. You have Vishwa, Taijasa, and Pragya. There is a Turyavastha, the fourth state, Ardhamatra. But here in Kashmiri Saivism, we have Turyavastha, and there you have Turyottaravastha, beyond Turyavastha. There are 5 stages here. Okay, so what he's mentioning is that mudra, that he's saying, mudam rathiti, that means mudam, mum dravayati, melts down your ignorance, mudravayati, converts this, seals it, this whole universe into the turyavastha, mudam rathi, gives you happiness. Yatha khechari mudra vivyajyate, yada, when that khechari mudra happens, which is Shiva avastha rupa, he's saying, tada yoginaha asima ananda anubhavo jayate. Asima ananda, niratisaya ananda, natu sasima ananda. It's not anymore any limited joy. What is limited joy and what is unlimited joy? Whenever joy, one of the simplest way to make sense of it is that whenever joy is dependent on anything, X, Y, Z, it is limited. Whenever the subject or object of this whole thing is limited, it's limited. When the object is limited, any object is limited. So you're watching a film, you're eating something, you're reading a book, you're talking to somebody. All these they have an object outside of it. And that cannot be unlimited. So by nature, that joy emanating out of that connection between you and that object of your experience is limited, is restricted beyond a point. And then when the subject is limited, in the sense when who experiences remains an individual, he being limited, his joy cannot be unlimited. His joy cannot cover this whole universe. His joy by nature is an individual experience. It's an individual experience. When you get rid of the ego self, and then you are no more tagged onto, you are not linked onto any object of your experience, then you have pure joy. That is Niratisaya. That is not Satisaya. That is Niratisaya because there is nothing beyond it. And that is mentioning. So that is saying what? That is saying Asima Ananda Anubhava Jayate Iyam Eva Sivavastha Tasya Yad Uktam. Whatever is mentioned, he's saying. Dhyanukarata Tadatmya Pratipatyuhu Deyatmika Dhyakara. You see, you have the dhyata and there is a dhyakara vritti, you are meditating. This duality is gone and there is a samarasya between the guy who is meditating, the jnata and the jnaya. Dhyata, dhyatri and dheya. This duality is dissolved. Then there is nothing, there is no vyapara, there is no conditioning, there is not a process. That pure consciousness remains. And therefore, what he says there is that Ata eva Sivavastha Surupavesha Salini. So that Shivavastha, when you're saying Shiva is not different from you, it is just Swarupa Avesha. You are established in yourself. And then he's saying Yoginishta Purushaha Yatha Sambid Akase Charati Sa Kechari Mudra Vidyate. When he is established in the Sambid Akasha, that sky, the space of consciousness, which means infinite consciousness, then he is in the Kshemaraja Mudra. It's different from, therefore, the Kshemaraja Mudra that we discussed yesterday, where you have some experience of sweetness in the mouth or something, you're sitting in a yogic posture. No, it's not about that. Sa Kshemaraja Mudra Sakshat Siva Vasta Eva Asti. That Kshemaraja Mudra is different from the yogic sciences in which it is mentioned. It's a state in which you can experience Amritattva, you can feel as if you're flying in the sky. No, this is much different from that. It's a complete non-dual, all-encompassing experience. Ataeva mudra mantra viryoho maya. Then what he's saying, mantra viryoho maya samagra kshova upasamena. You see, much of the kshova is the perturbations that we all experience, the difficulties, perturbations, fluctuations, disturbances, interruptions, whatever you call it. These perturbations are silenced because these perturbations are not real. These are maya, born out of a faulty understanding. It's like a little boy. You must have experienced that. In different places, it's there. I don't know if in London, if you go, there's this death museum, or if you go to the Madame Tussauds, then after that they'll make you go through a tunnel where some people will frighten you, and you have these boys and girls shouting, because that's an experience. You're paying for it, but you are supposed to get frightened. Okay, so you are just passing through that experience. It's not real, and when you realize it's not real, that fear goes. Like, for example, in a rope which is lying in a dark room and you are scared it's a snake, or there is a cloth which is hanging on some kind of a wire or a string at the backyard on in your balcony, and you think somebody is standing there, and you think there's a gunman standing there to attack you, and you're terribly scared. All it takes to switch on the light, or you realize, oh my God, okay, I am the one who hung that particular cloth, and then now it has kind of got crumpled. It looks like a person standing there. The moment you realize that that particular person whom you are scared of was born out of faulty perception, the moment the faulty perception goes, that fear goes. Therefore, when he's saying, the interesting here is mantra virya maya, there are two things, mantra and virya. Because you are doing proper meditation, you are realizing the benefit. And the most interesting thing is maya samagra kshova upasamena. And the disturbance, perturbation caused by the maya mala, the maya kshova, which is there, once you are doing this mantra and trana, so you're doing this meditation and you are removing the fears, perturbations, disturbances, then what happens? Sambit prakasatmaka swarupa unmajanika lakshanam avastha samyam vartate. So then what happens is Sambit prakasatmaka, that Chaitanya is showing prakasatmaka, self-effulgent, that light of consciousness. It appears. Unmajana, it appears. Lakshanam avastha samyam, and that is that uniformity, unity, samarasyam. There is no duality, no difference. Okay, it vartate. Kintu kevalam bahyartha pratipattau karya vedana vastunah. Then he's saying prithag bhuta prithag rupata anubhuyate. Bahyartha pratipattau. But in order to, you have that consciousness which is unified. But then if you come back to the Vyuthana Avastha or the Vyavahara, when you have to do something or something, it might appear as if, oh, how can you say that this consciousness is unified when I'm reading a book and then I'm going to the shop and then I'm buying a ticket, I'm flying and coming back. So the consciousness is undergoing a lot of changes. Where did it have samarasya? No. When you are connecting with the outside world, it appears as if it's getting fragmented. It nonetheless remains united, because we are talking about that highest stage of yogic realization of the aspirant who has reached there. This is the simple disposition of this. And we will just more or less, it's the same thing, but we'll look at Kshemaraja because you have been doing it. Prang nirdishta satvataya vidyayaha swabhavike samuthane. What we have prang nirdishta, pahle bataya gaya, what we have mentioned, satvataya vidyayaha, that satatva, that Shiva tattva, that vidya, when it appeared, that is what he's trying to say. Samuthane, swabhavike samuthane, परमेश इच्छा मात्र घटिते. What is swabhavike? Paramesha, that Parameshwara, ichha matra ghatite, by his sweet will. But I tell you, God never exercises his will against or for us without taking into consideration our eligibility or yogyata. So the sadhana chatushtaya samparna will do sravana manana nididhyasana because of God's ways. But he has done his sadhana, therefore he's now being rewarded with that interest in the Vedanta. Similarly here, Bhagavan gives, but it's ichha matra ghatite, emphasizing the fact that there is no hard effort to be there. It happens naturally when we get the grace of God because of what we have toiled for so far. Mita siddhi nyaghavini. Then you are rejecting all these mita siddhis, lower siddhis that you have. Sahaje samudmajjane. Then you have that sahaja thing, swabhavika, akritima. Khe bodhagamane, khe akase bodhagamane charati iti khechari. That khechari mudra avivajyate. What the lower paragraph in the commentary says, this guy is saying the same thing. Kidrisi khechari, what is that khechari? Shivasya chinnathasya. Chitnatha, Chinnatha, that is the boss, is the supreme, boss of this whole field of consciousness. Is Sambhidakasha, is the Parameshwara. Chinnathasya sarvavasthatuhu, avasthatuhu, Chinnathasya avasthatuhu, sambandhini avastha. So you get connected with this. You are established there. That is that Khechari Mudra. Swananda Uchchalata Rupa, that is, it's self-propagated. It's born out of itself. It's not conditioned by any cause or condition external to that realization. That realization is on its own with the grace of God. When that happens, then we feel liberated. Then he's quoting from that Malini Vijayuttara Tantra, couple of lines from there. He's saying, Badbha Padmasanam Yogi, Nabhau Akhyeshwaram Nyashet, Dandakaram Tutavat, Tanna Yet, Yavatka Khaya Trayam, Nigriha Tatra Tatpurna, Prerayet, Khatrayen tu, Yetanga Badbha Mahayogi, Khegatim Pratipadyate. So is Khatraya, there are these three Shaktis in the Akasa, that meditation you are doing. And he's saying that when you are focusing on this, you're sitting in the erect posture, and then you take your mind, navu, you focus on your navel point, and then you fully concentrate everything, and you are working on that Khechari Mudra. Then finally you will get that Ananda. What do you get? Etam Badhva Mahayogi Khe Gatim Pratipadyate. He experiences as if he's flying, is established in the sky. He experiences that. He's saying no, but that is not Khechari Mudra. But it is written in Malini Vijayuttara Tantra. Yeah, that is another kind of Khechari Vidya. That is a lower kind. That's a very limited edition of Khechari Vidya. So what is the real edition? What is the expanded? What is the original edition? Here it is, he's saying. Gatim Ityartha Bhavena Kulamargena Nityashaha. How does that guy goes forward? It is from the Tantra Sadabhava, from that book he's saying. Gatim eti artha bhavena kulamargena. So all the time on the path of totality. Gatim eti, he is on that move towards. Gati here is jnanarthaka, artha bhavena, as per the real nature of things, nityashaha, all the time, without interruption. Charate sarvajantunam khechari namasa smita. So, is that unified field of consciousness that he's talking about? When we are on the path of enlightenment, the focus is on jnana here. It's not about the psychophysical manipulation of your body-mind complex. Those manipulations are useful. They give you limited results, and they are time-bound. They are not unlimited, infinite. They don't liberate. They give you wonderful experiences, nevertheless. So he's saying, no, when you are in this particular sadhana, then you establish. It is Tantra Sadabhava Nirupita Parasambitti Swarupa Evam Iha Vedatmaka. This is the important advice here. Evam Iha Vedatmaka Maya Samasta Khyova Prasantya. So Maya Rupa, these delusional distinctions, this is good, that is bad, I need to have this, then it's going to give me pleasure, that's going to give me happiness, that's going to give me name and fame. These are all Vedatmaka. Chidatmaka Swarupa Unmajana Eka Rupam Mantra Viryam Mahaviryam Cha Adishtam. When you turn around from there and you focus on that realization, what we have been discussing from the beginning of this whole Siva Sutra, then you are established in that ultimate level of realization. Taduktam Kula Chudamano. Kula Chudamani, he's quoting, Ekam Sustim Vijam Eka Mudra Cha Khechari. You know, this whole sansara, this diverse world that you are seeing, all of these there is only one Vija mantra, because you are meditating on that Shiva thing, right? So Vijam, Ekam Vijam. Out of that Shiva Tattva, everything has manifested. So you can have thousands of mantras, but there is only one root thing, that Vija mantra, you have to meditate on it. And that is not different from that Parama Shiva Tattva that you have to focus on. Eka Mudra Cha Khechari. And what are the mudras? Oh, there are 16, 18 mudras that you talk about. No. There is only one mudra which can liberate you, and that is the Khechari mudra. And it's not about sitting and creating a physical posture or internal posture of the body mind. No. It's about having that enlightenment and realization. When you're traveling from an understanding trapped in dualities to an understanding which is oriented towards and ultimately established in non-duality and unity. So saying that exactly is that theta. Iti spandetu mantra virya swarupa nirupanena eva mudra viryam sanghritam. So from Spandakarika, again he's quoting Yada Khyobah Praliyeta. When that Khyobho, you know, there's it's a beautiful thing that is mentioning. And Spandakarika is actually, some people say that Siva Sutra is actually a sutra rendition of the Spandakarika. The details are there. So he's saying Yada Khyovah Praliyeta Tada Syat Paramam Padam. That is in the first chapter, the 9th verse. So the commentator writes there, Sacha Asya Atma Valasparshaha Sahajaya Asuddhaya Vyaptasya Karyam Ichchatapi Na Bhavati. So, you know, you might, Kintu Yada Khyobam Ahamiti. What is that Khyova? What is that perturbation? The perturbation is actually having something to do with our ego self, our ego consciousness. Ahamiti pratyabhava rupa asya praliyate. Once we have that ahanta, I am this. The moment I say I am this, I am ahamiti, then I'm different from others. And then there is a problem. So, Khyobah ahamiti pratyabhava rupa asya praliyate tada asya bhavati parame pade pratishtanam. So it's established there. There are different commentators who have commented on it, and one interesting way of this being interpreted is like this: that when we have a lot of impurities in our minds, and we are chasing different ends in our lives, and so many duties, so many aspirations to be fulfilled, and then we are caught up with their results, good or bad. And however much we may try with the Supreme Consciousness, with this framework of our mind, with this framework of our consciousness, which is guided, the key signature of Ahankara is having there as an imprint cast on it, with this frame of consciousness, will not be able to touch that Shiva consciousness. That doesn't happen. However, if we are able to discard this frame of mind, if we discard this operating system, then you may still connect with the world and can do all your duties and everything. But then you are doing it, connect with that Supreme Consciousness and everything. You're becoming an instrument of that divinity and you're doing everything. But then you're all the time returning to your original self. So therefore, he's saying very beautifully there that even though outwardly the consciousness seems to connect with limited objects, and is guided by that. But in true sense, it's no different from that Shivavastha. That is what he mentions there. Couple of commentaries from other interesting guys. That so if a person talks about, or if you ask me, what is that Sadvidya? What is that Sadvidya that you're talking about, which is different from the Asuddha Vidya? There should be some understanding. And there are two states. One is the state preceding emergence of the Suddha Vidya, and the state which succeeds or follows emergence of the Suddha Vidya. So what is that threshold point? Appearance of the Suddha Vidya. What follows and what precedes. What precedes is a few Mita Suddhis or Siddhis. You have certain perfections. Because you are also very advanced sadhaka. You don't have that Suddha Vidya Udaya, fine, but you have a lot of Siddhis and you are entangled in them. When the Suddha Vidya emerges in you, then what happens is that first you abandon all these Siddhis. And then what follows is that Khechari Avastha, that Samya Avastha, that harmony, that peace, that bliss, which follows. In between, this is a separator. Suddha Vidya has to emerge. In Suddha Vidya, to find place, all the Mita Suddhis, Mita Siddhis, and all whatever that you have been valuing so far, you have to leave them behind. You can't carry them, and you can't carry all that you are doing and still be enlightened in the true sense of the term. That is what he's trying to say. So, broadly, a few words which different commentators to sum it up is that when this Vidya emerges, okay, then you have that particular Suddha Vidya Utthana materializes, and it materializes not because of any effort, but it is like a Sahaj Avastha. It happens spontaneously. It's like quantity turns into quality, like, it's like reaching that stage of escape velocity beyond which you don't feel that gravitational pull anymore. So you just have to reach that point in the sadhana where it automatically happens. You don't have to make any effort for it. And then the critical factor there is Parameshwar's grace or Ichha. And Tiraskarana of all the so-called things which made you proud and famous and attractive to a lot of people. You have to say goodbye to these siddhis. Then you move forward. What follows? You have entry into the Bodha Gagana or the Jnana Akasha, that Khechari Mudra. And how? Because Lord Shiva, who is Chidrupa, Chinnatha, his existence becomes the nature of your consciousness. The state of your consciousness is not different from the nature of existence of that Chinnatha, Chidrupa, Paramashiva. Imagine how beautiful it is. And then you don't have to Satyam, Jnanam, Anandam, Brahma, Anantam, Brahma, or Sachidananda Swarupa. That Ananda you don't have to look for. Once that Suddha Vidya Udaya happens, that that Swabhavataha, that happens, that Swananda Uchchalata, automatically there's effulgence, flooding of bliss in your consciousness. And then what is it? There is nothing more to get. It is Parasambit Rupa. So it is there. So with all this, then how does that happen? He's saying the beginning point where you can say Vishwa Ahamiti, Vishwatmanaha Mati Suddha Vidya. This is what is mentioned by the commentators in the Prativijna Karika Vritti. He says what? Vishwa Ahamiti Vishwatmanaha Mati Suddha Vidya. So essentially you have that Sarvatmaka Bhava of the Vedanta here. Okay. So this is how, and there is one little thing written by Maheshwarananda, Mahartha Manjari. So there's a bit of quotation from there. It's very relevant, so I'm just bringing it in. Not much digression. So he's saying essentially, Jnata sa atma jneo swabhavasya loka vyavaharaha. Jnata sa atma jneo swabhavasya loka vyavaharaha. Then, generally you have this Jnata and Jnaya. So then you have this is how is there in the Loka Vyavahara. Eka Rasham Sangsistim Yatra Gato Sakhalu Nistusa Vidya. Nistusa. What is Susa? You have this chaff when you are you are taking to have a paddy cultivation. Before you get rice, you have to get rid of all that barn and all that, right? Now here what he's saying is Tusha Rahita means Mala Rahita. Suddha Vidya, Mala Rahita means there is no influence of Maya on it. It's pure, it's transparent, and it reunites you. There is no confusion anymore in it. There is a certain lightness of being. And this lightness of being is the result of the realization. Every time the heaviness that we experience is born out of our ignorance, our entanglements, and our entanglements are born out of our obsession, our craving for little things, confusing them as the end of our lives. I mean, you want to get that, that's going to liberate us. And that's what he's mentioning. So essentially, that jnata, jnaya, that kind of a thing. When you have that samarasya, jnata and jnaya is one in the form of pratiti. That awareness unites the jnata and jnaya. The jnata goes, the jnaya goes, only the aham brahmasmi. Aham goes, asmi goes, only that Brahma stage. That is that pratiti. This happens that Suddha Vidya, Sarva Vyapaka, Paramatma Tattva, Sarvatra Avasthiti. And then you have that Paranubhuti. Okay? So that is what ultimately saying that you have that Samanadhikaranyam cha Sadvidya Ahamiti Idam Tihi Aham Idam. I am this whole universe. Ahanta and Idanta. These are, once you say Ahanta, Idanta are different, then there is duality between you and the world. So then you have to strive. I want to have this, I want to have that. So that's a level of restriction of our consciousness. When we try to unravel the mystery, you have to have unfettered access to reality. And the access to reality is not different from who you are. It's just becoming oneself. These fetters are imposed by us on ourselves because of the way we look at the world. Therefore, he's saying that ultimately will be established in the Parama Shiva Tattva through this process. That is how this fifth sutra comes to an end. Any questions? We have a couple of minutes. Any questions or doubts? Okay, so if you don't have, then we can do the Santi Mantras.
Swamiji, can I?
Yes,
Sorry.
please.
Sorry.
Yeah, please.
Looking at this sutra, it seems there is some mysticism is involved to get into that highest level. Does it require? Does it involve a discretionary power of ultimate God? I mean, giving that, describing that mysticism. It appears that looking at this sutra on the natural age of knowledge, Khechari, the Siva state, some amount of mysticism is involved. It apparently looks like.
Yeah, you are absolutely right. But I tell you, the discretion of Lord Shiva, discretion of Parameshwara is not discretionary, because discretion is possible only of a person who has Raga Dvesha. Bhagavan is Raga Dvesha Nirapeksha. Why? Because he doesn't have any individual mind. He is the universal mind. He's like the supercomputer, where our desires, our aspirations, our likes and dislikes, and our good deeds and bad deeds get processed. And then that discretion fructifies in the form of God's anugraha or the lack of it. So, Lord Shiva is Asutosa, easily gives results. And Akarma Karma Dayaka, it also is mentioned that he gives you what you even don't deserve. This is to do stuti of the bhakta, to motivate us. So, yes, you can say, you must have read in the stories how there are 3 daughter-in-laws, and there is the mother-in-law gives all the keys to the girl who has virtues of thrift, and she's very disciplined and has a sense of responsibility. So she gives her the keys of the jewelry box, because she's not going to waste it. Similarly, God is going to give us the key to that treasure house of consciousness and bliss if he knows that we have thoroughly with our sadhana, we have got rid of our egos, and we are genuinely interested in him. If we are genuinely interested and we do the sadhana, he can do wonders, and things can happen in a very magical way. And you are absolutely right. This is highly mystic. There's no doubt about it. Okay. Yeah. So let's do the Santi mantras. Om Purnamadaha Purnamidam Purnat Purnamudachyate Purnasya Purnamadaya Purnameva Vasishyate. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Sri Gurubhyo Namaha. Hari Om Tat Sat. So again, we'll meet on